And we're live here, halftime with Harmon, the halftime edition of the early NFL games. Thanks everybody for tuning in on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you're watching us right now. We want to thank you for joining us for your little alternative halftime programming to all the major networks. We're going to be talking fantasy football today. We're really going to be digging into the action. Want you guys to hit up the chat and make sure that you are asking some great questions. We are excited to be talking about NFL Week 2 action here with you guys. Remember, hit up that chat, ask some questions, use the hashtag halftime with Harmon on Twitter, and we'll really get to some of your big-time questions for the fantasy relevant news from Week 2 here. Let's start off with a little bit of an injury recap. Of course, you know, this is football, this is the NFL, and there are unfortunately injuries to discuss. The biggest one, actually two big ones, come from the Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers contest. What's going on right now? Eagles already banged up. You know, we've got Nelson Aguilar as a player who's still out there, but Alshon Jeffrey's out. Nick Foles is obviously starting in place of Carson Wentz. So, but the bigger news from this particular contest, Jay Ajayi left with a back injury, went to the locker room. We have seen Corey Clement out there. He's the guy right now that actually scored a touchdown in this game too. If Jay Ajayi has to miss any time, Corey Clement is going to be one of the most popular waiver wire picks from the early action. He's going to be someone that people are hot and heavy for. Perhaps you stashed him in the offseason. You've kept him around from your drafts. That would be a killer for you if you had. Unfortunately, he's probably a guy that a lot of people dropped in week 1. You know, he was one of these players that we had an issue with, you know, in terms of the snap count. Darren Sproles was out there, and a lot of people were scared off of that. Darren Sproles, of course, was inactive for this particular game, so we are missing that part of the backfield as well. So a lot of places where we're going to have some injury opportunity, and I really think that Corey Clement, if Jay Ajayi has to miss significant time, he's going to be a player that we're going to be hot and heavy for on the waiver wire. So yeah, definitely make sure you are you're following that particular one right there. Another injury it's actually in the same game, same team. Eagles wide receiver Mike Wallace was carted off with an ankle injury. That's another one to monitor. Obviously, Aguilar is the number one receiver while Alshon Jeffrey's out, but Mike Wallace is a player who's definitely going to be worth your time and attention. In terms of what he does, if he comes back in this game. If not, maybe Alshon Jeffrey gets back soon. But again, this Eagles offense is very much banged up right now. Got a question from the chat room on Periscope. Devontae Adams and Dalvin Cook are both on my roster. Can I expect more? Devontae is amazing. I mean, Devontae Adams, yeah, snagged a touchdown there earlier. That was great. It was great to see. You know, this is a guy who obviously is in line for a big opportunity this year. He's the clear number one in the Green Bay Packers offense, the Aaron Rodgers-led offense. Aaron Rodgers is out there playing, in case you missed that, in case you're sleeping through the first half of these games. Rodgers is playing, and that's great news. I don't know that you can expect too much more from Devontae Adams. Getting the touchdown, he's got a tough matchup against Xavier Rhodes, but I think you've got to really like what Adams sets up for the rest of this season for sure. Dalvin Cook, you know, he's a guy who played over 80% of the snaps in week 1. He's definitely been out there here in week 2. Most importantly, in week 1, he was second on the team in targets behind Adam Thielen. If he's going to have a clear, secure pass-catching role, Dalvin Cook is in line to be a clear-cut RB1 this year. You know, he was drafted as such, so I think you can expect big things going forward out of Dalvin Cook for sure. Another question we've got in the chat here, should Jack Doyle be a drop? No, I don't think you're dropping Jack Doyle yet. You know, Eric Ebron, surely enough, has 2 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. That is great to see. The Colts do want to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. The Eagles, where Frank Reich came from back in 2017, the head coach now of the Indianapolis Colts, he was a guy who ran the 2 tight end sets a lot. Obviously, Trey Burton and Zach Ertz back in Philly. They threw out of that formation in 2017 over 50% of the time when they ran 2 tight end sets. So I really like this sets up for Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. I know Ebron is getting the big plays, getting the touchdowns early, but don't sweat it. If you have Jack Doyle, you're going to want to hold on to him. And not to mention, at the tight end position, like, who are you picking up right now that you're going to play over Jack Doyle? I would say probably no one. All right, we've got another question from the chat here. We're going to take need one flex in a standard league. Dede Westbrook, Philip Lindsay, or Rashad Penny. Those are some deep plays for sure. Philip Lindsay was a guy that came out in week 1, really shined, was as kind of a change of pace back. I do expect this passing offense and rushing offense to be kind of a committee approach in Denver, the backfield especially. I think Royce Freeman's kind of the early down banger, the guy that you want. I think he ends up leading this team in touches for sure. Philip Lindsay is a real nice change of pace back. I think we might have seen the high end of his range of outcomes there in week 1. It's a good matchup against the Raiders, but I don't know that I necessarily want to chase those points. Dede Westbrook is interesting. I know he didn't have a big statistical game in week 1, but Dede Westbrook did get out there and run a lot of routes in the slot, was the Jaguars' primary slot receiver in week 1, and I think that's interesting for this coming game against the New England Patriots. The Patriots last year were top 2 in yards per target allowed out of the slot, and I think that Westbrook, as that big play slot receiver, kind of like a T.Y. Hilton mold of player, I think he could have a big game in this one, especially if the Jaguars have to take to the air to chase the Patriots. Obviously, we know the Jaguars are more of a defensive run-focused team. But nevertheless, I still think that Dede Westbrook can get over with maybe one big play if the Patriots get out there ahead of time. So I'd play Dede Westbrook. And, hey, I'm actually with you there. I have to play Dede Westbrook in a game this week, too, in the Team Huevos League with some of my Yahoo colleagues here. I got to roll him out as a deep flex play. So, hey, if nothing else, you and I are in this together. So there is that. Taking another question from the chat. Remember, jump in the Periscope chat room, jump in the Facebook Live chat room, and I'll answer whatever questions come our way. Riddick or Jalen Richard, obviously Theo Riddick of the Detroit Lions, needs some help here in this one. This is kind of tough to chase the points with Jalen Richard, but Richard's a guy that I've always really liked. I told people last year he was kind of a sleeper on the Raiders. Obviously, we know he's not going to take the early down looks from Marshawn Lynch and probably going to fall behind Doug Martin in that pecking order. But nevertheless, Richard, we saw him come out there, catch a lot of passes in week 1, and I think he continues to hold that role. I think that the Raiders are going to be in negative game script in this game. I think the Denver Broncos always get off to a hot start. They've won over 30 of their home games in the last couple of seasons. In the first 2 weeks of the season when it kicks off, they have a big-time advantage when they're playing in Denver because of that altitude. It's a big-time spot for them. So I think that what you're looking at is a good solid spot for Jalen Richard to catch a lot of passes. I would take him over Theo Riddick, even though I do think the Lions 49ers game is definitely going to be high scoring for sure. And I do like that we got a little note from the chat. As a Lions fan, please stay away from all Lions or pay. And I get it, but look, the Lions do have a good passing offense. This trio of wide receivers is legit. Golden Tate is the guy I like the most as the slot receiver. He's going to get the high-value targets in the middle of the field. Probably a good red zone guy, too. I think that you're really looking at a solid game for Golden Tate. Week in, week out, you can project him pretty comfortably. Now, on the other side, obviously, you've got Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones. I like both of those guys in this spot, too. Again, I do think that the 49ers and the Lions game is going to get high scoring. I think it does push towards the over on the projected point total. I didn't bet on this game at all, but I do think that you could see that happen. I think the 49ers offense especially was, really heavy as a kind of a team that left some yards and points on the board in week 1. George Kittle especially, Jimmy Garoppolo missed him in the back of the end zone. One easy touchdown could have had there. He also dropped a long touchdown that would have happened had he hauled that one in. A lot of yards and points left on the field there for the 49ers. We'll be talking about them a lot differently. Just a couple missed opportunities against the Vikings in week 1. But I do think that this offense is going to come out and just roll over this pathetic Detroit unit. So I do think this game gets high scoring. If you have your lines today, I wouldn't stay away. I'd be throwing them out there. And yeah, I got another question from Tyler Lockett related question. Knows that I'm the resident Tyler Lockett truther of the industry, and indeed I am. And I really like Tyler Lockett this week. I'm sure you're surprised to hear me say that, and by that I mean not at all surprised. Lockett, obviously, with Doug Baldwin out, they are expecting him to be the top receiver on this team. I know people are talking about Brandon Marshall, but give me a break. Give me a break with Brandon Marshall. Tyler Lockett, though, he's in position to really have a breakout year. We saw him catch a long touchdown. I think the Seahawks are going to be behind in this game. This game is a contest that I bet on. I took the Bears -3 and took the under. I think it's going to be a slow-paced, defensive-heavy game on the Chicago side. This Bears defense is legit. Roquan Smith, Khalil Mack, obviously in the front seven. Those guys are legit players. Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, just a strong, stout front for the Chicago Bears in the defensive front seven. And I think that is going to carry over to a really strong situation there. For the Bears offense. They'll be playing a positive game script, and that means the Seahawks will be taking to the air and chasing teams. So I would really I'm playing Lockett in several spots. I debated it between Chris Godwin this morning, another guy that I've been really high on for several years. And Chris Godwin did score a touchdown early in this game. Let's actually talk about the Buccaneers offense, because I want to know from you guys, do you think Jameis Winston gets his starting job back? I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I've got producers here in the back all shaking their head, and this is great. People do not expect Jameis Winston to take the field. Actually, Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network said that the Buccaneers do believe that Jameis Winston is their future at quarterback, but they are very conceivably thinking about keeping Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starter. And look, if Fitzpatrick is playing well, and we know he's capable of high highs, God knows he's capable of those low lows, but if we keep Ryan Fitzpatrick out there, I mean, these weapons are really balling. Deshaun Jackson scored another long touchdown against the Eagles today, a team he used to play for, revenge game, obviously. Chris Godwin, 8 with another touchdown. This dude's just such a stud. And Todd Monken, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, former wide receivers coach, he's out there really as a guy that likes Chris Godwin a lot, likes to push the ball down the field, be aggressive at attacking teams. And I think that if Fitzpatrick stays as the quarterback and keeps playing hot, and he just keeps the good side of his range of outcomes going, I think we're looking at this Buccaneers offense as one of the best units in the entire NFL. I mean that. This unit is stacked with talent at the pass catcher position. And if they're just going to spread the field and go to the air, this is an offense we're going to absolutely love for fantasy. We're going to take a couple of other questions from the chat before we got to jump out of here. Ty Montgomery is a sleeper pick. I mean, sure, definitely he's a guy that you can pick up and hold, especially a 16-team half PPR league like you got here. But, Aaron Jones is a sneaky one to pick up following this game, actually, because he's going to be hot and heavy as a waiver wire pickup. But if you could somehow add him the games are locked now, you can't add him now at this point. So he's going to be a guy that everybody in your league probably wants to pick up because he's a talented runner. There's a lot of analysts that are really high on him. But Ty Montgomery's just kind of an end of the roster hold. I don't think you're playing him very much. Got another question. TJ Yeldon or Royce Freeman today? I'm going to go with TJ Yeldon in this one, simply because I think that he's going to inherit a more run-heavy workload. I think that he is right now just the clear-cut starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars with Leonard Fournette most likely not going to play today. So I think TJ Yeldon's someone that you want to start where you have him. Royce Freeman, like I said, I do expect him to have a good game, but at the same time, it's a backfield split there with Phillip Lindsay and Devontae Booker also just kind of taking up space, pass blocking, whatever. Is Rex Burkhead a safe play? No, Rex Burkhead's probably not a safe play. I think you're going to get a good floor out of him. He had RB1 type workload in week 1, but he was not practicing with a concussion during parts of the week, so maybe they limit his touches here. Also, Sony Michel is expected to make his NFL debut here in week 2 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's a tough matchup, so I don't think Burkhead's necessarily a safe play, but he is a guy that you can definitely roll out there and continue and use this week, but I don't know that he's necessarily safe. Will Rojo ever play? No, probably not. A couple questions from the Twitch chat. Remember, you can subscribe to this show on Twitch and make sure you get a notification for when we go live. How about the bird alert? How about that bird alert, baby? First one of the NFL season, Albert Wilson touchdown. And what I'm going to be watching for in the second half before we sign off here with Halftime with Harmon, definitely going to be looking for the Kansas City Chiefs offense, man. Patrick Mahomes is cooking. Threw a touchdown to Travis Kelce. Kareem Hunt got in on the action. I hope you played Kareem Hunt in DFS. He was definitely under-owned this week. I know I did in several spots. This Chiefs offense, definitely going to be watching them, and obviously the Steelers offense too in that same game. James Conner got in on the action. James Washington was out there. I'm going to be watching those young players in the Steelers offense, and hopefully they can kind of get their groove back. But that is all for the first part of the early game actions with Halftime with Harmon. Remember, you can come back and watch this show again. Well, not this exact same show. That would be ridiculous. But we're going to be coming at you halftime of the late game actions, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're subscribing, following us on Twitter at Yahoo Fantasy, Yahoo Sports Fantasy on Facebook. The YouTube page with Yahoo Sports will be streaming from there as well. And, of course, Twitch, Halftime with Harmon. If you want to find the show anywhere on social media, hashtag Halftime with Harmon. You can follow me on Twitter at MattHarmon_BYB. If you guys are familiar with me, obviously you know I'll be self-promoting because that's just what I do. But I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and good luck to all of you in your fantasy lineups here in the second half of the early games.